Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Stephen Briggs, Technical Area Sales Manager for the South Midlands and South Wales. And today I'm going to be talking to you about growing media. So there'll be two of us talking about growing media. So I'll start off with where we are with the move to peat-free, including growing media trends. We'll look at some of the alternatives to peat and their properties. I'll touch on our H2Grow wetting agent and our fertiliser options, which is our total solutions package. And then my colleague Carl Mason will come up and talk about changing effects of growing media, raw materials, added nitrogen, climate change, and a bit about storage. So what is driving the move to peat-free? So there are several reasons for this, including environmental concerns, legislation, customer pressure or end user pressure, and whether you as growers or your end users have a preference whether you're growing in peat reduced or peat-free growing media. There are obviously government deadlines that keep getting pushed forwards and forwards again, but as an industry we are all working towards peat-free growing and sustainable growing, and that's where the industry's going. So that's what we're looking at in terms of what we can do at ICL. So I really like this graph. It just shows from 2018 on the far left to 2024, which is the last full year of growing, and it just shows the trend where we are. Obviously COVID was in there and that kind of started the drive towards sustainable growing media, but it just shows how much we've reduced our peat, which is the red bars, and what we've replaced it with. So the main thing, which is the yellow bars, is our wood fibre. I think that's a really good thing that the industry's done, and kind of round of applause for you guys for embracing that, and us for providing the products for you to do that. But there is a bit to go, obviously, in terms of getting to full peat-free, but we will get there. In terms of growing media itself, what does that need to do? So it needs to provide anchorage for plants, to provide adequate airspace for root respiration. It needs to hold sufficient water, which will enable you to have sufficient nutrients availability. It needs to be free from pathogens, pests and weeds. It needs to be safe to be handled by people, whether that's at the potting stage or at end user stage. It needs to be able to flow through machinery. Obviously there's loads of different types of machinery, whether it's bale breakers, potting machines, conveyor belts, that sort of thing. So it's got to be able to go through all of those. It needs to be consistent from each delivery, so you know as users what exactly you're getting from your growing media. So Koya, it's a byproduct from the coconut industry, sourced mainly from India and Sri Lanka. It's got lots of pros and lots of cons. So pros, it's got high water holding capacity and a low airfield porosity, so it's good for kind of holding that moisture in peat-free mixes. But obviously the major cons come from the fact it is from kind of Southeast Asia. So you've got all the transport costs, fuel that gets used up in getting it over here. Carl will also touch on some of the chemical properties. So it can have quite high conductivity, quite high potassium, which has some impacts when we're looking at mix structure. Bark is a waste product from the timber industry. It's been used for a number of years now, bark. Really good for opening mixes up and providing you that airfield porosity. It was the main raw material that we used for peat reduction until kind of wood fibres came aboard, which is what we're kind of mainly driving with ICL, because we can produce it ourselves. And then wood fibres, been used from about the 90s onwards, but yeah, recently, kind of the last 5 or 6 years with ICL, we've now got our 4 grades, which you've probably seen outside where you had your coffee, which are the main raw material that we are using moving forward, and we're able to blend those together now. So like traditionally there was 4 grades of peat, we've now got 4 grades of wood fibre that we can blend together to give you the different AFPs and available water to be able to give you different mixes, whether bedding, nursery stock, tree mixes, etc, etc. So this is a graph that was produced by ADAS from our colleague Chloe Whiteside when she was working there. And it covers lots of different raw materials, and along the bottom is the AFP, along the left-hand side going upwards is the available water. So what this looks at is where peat is, which is kind of on the left and towards the top, means it's got a lower AFP, higher water holding capacity, and that's traditionally what has been used up until a number of years ago, like kind of peat-based growing media. And then on the bottom right is where you've got things like wood fibres and barks, which are much more open. So they've got a higher AFP but a lower water holding capacity. And that's where some of the issues has been with moving towards peat-free growing, that growers have had to use more water or perceived to use more water in mixes because they are more open. So what we're looking at here is where you want kind of growing media to be is in that top left-hand box. And if you remove that top left-hand box, you can see you're kind of left with wood fibres and barks mainly, which is what we're now left with sustainable growing media. But at ICL, we've developed our range of fibre grade advanced wood fibre, professional grade wood fibre, rather than a bulking agent in retail mixes. And if you look, they are much higher in their available water and lower in their AFP, which is much more ideal for growing medias. And that is highlighted in this graph here, which shows the 4 grades of wood fibre on the left-hand side. So our original grade is the Fibre Grow coarse, which is at the bottom. And as you go up the graph on the left, you see the new grades as they get finer. And it's the water holding and AFP, and it matches pretty much identically where the peats are. I think that's a really good graph to show actually, yes, the properties of these wood fibre products are there, and they do match what growers have traditionally been using in growing media, which is a really good thing for moving forward. So what can we offer you here at ICL for your total solutions package? So we can change the percentage of each of the raw materials, so whether wood fibre, coir or bark, to make you a mix that will fit your growing solution, whether you're growing bedding, whether you're growing trees, whether it's nursery stock. We can change those properties around, just like we used to do with changing how much 0 to 10 peat compared to 6 to 12 peat you've got in there. We can say, actually, we can give you a coarser wood fibre, blend that with a finer wood fibre, bit of coir, bit of bark, and that gives you exactly what you need to provide you that available water and AFP for growing your crops. Other things that we add in include wetting agents, base fertilisers, trace elements, any additional nitrogen that you need because of the wood-based products that are going into these mixes, control release fertiliser, which is the Osmocote, and then we can also add in plant protection products such as biostimulants, biofungicides and bioinsecticides. So you, in your growing media and in each pot, have a total growing solution for your crop. So first I'll touch on the H2 Grow, which Andrew was talking about. It's a fantastic product for spreading and re-wetting the pots. Like it says on the screen, it can last the whole growing season with the lowest consistent rate of 5 ml in 1,000 litres of water. It improves the water management in your pots and containers. Really effective re-wetting of growing media if it gets too dry. It really helps penetrate and spread that water across the whole pot. Really good for pre-dispatch work as well. So if you are dispatching to garden centres, it's a really good idea to do that last water, get some H2 Grow in there. It just helps the crop look as good as it can do at the garden centre level or end user level. Additional nitrogen that we add in, at the moment we've got 2 products available. So the Osmoform High-N is an 8 to 10 week slow release nitrogen source. So that's kind of for bedding crops and shorter term crops. And the Osmocote N is a 5 to 6 month control release product, really good for your nursery stock, tree mixes, that sort of thing. One of each of these products is needed in peat-free growing. What it does, it helps offset any of the nitrogen lockup that might happen because of the wood-based products going into the mixes. So that is used on top of any Osmocote that is in your growing media. Osmocote 5 has been made for peat-free growing with its S-shaped release curve and optimum trace element package. And yeah, as area sales managers, we'll go around and advise on which one is best. for your crop, and then on the right hand side the Osmocote Exact and the Osmocote Bloom, so they're the more straight line curves. So depending on what you're looking for, we can provide products for either of those two things. Pre-stop is also available in our mixes for kind of damping off issues and things like that. And then biostimulants that we can add into the pot for you is the Vital Nova Tri-Boost. Really good for kind of establishment work or anything that is a bit more temperamental. Just gives you that kind of bit more microbial activity in the pot as we're using more sterile products in the growing media. So that kind of covers everything that we can put in at the starting point. Carl will now take over, who will talk about things like storage and how you can best use your products on your nursery.
Well, good morning all. I'm Carl Mason. I'm from the Technical Area Sales Management team. I cover the east of the UK, so I'm Lincolnshire, Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire and Yorkshire. Just a little bit of brief history. I've been a grower for many years, like you guys here, and I moved towards ICL as a career change and everything else, and seeing the technology they've got, embraced it really well, and it gives me a great knowledge to talk about what we're going to do and how it's gone and how it professes to customers as well, which is really good. So, as I say, being a grower, it's never been easy. We've got many changing factors: waste, chemicals, fertiliser legislation, labour, types of plants, even plant names are changing. But growing media is the one that's really the main issue. Obviously, peat reduction is always very topical, and peat-free. Raw materials, Steve's already spoke about raw materials, fertiliser rates and added nitrogen to compensate the wood-based products that are in the new medias, and also climate. So it has many sort of challenging factors of what we've got to do. So as for this slide is saying growing medias are not like fine wines. If you keep it stored, it doesn't get better, it's steadily deteriorating. So to use the growing media in a timely and effective manner is going to be getting the best performance of what you want to do. Years ago, people used to store peat-based products for many, many times and never have an issue. When you're moving across to peat-reduced and peat-free, you do have the issue of the wood breaking down, or any issues of any other products that's breaking down. That will affect the AFP and obviously increase conductivity and that, and then your problems start occurring. So to use it at a timely fashion is always going to be very good. So what we've got here is a bit of a slide that says now and then. What it's saying is basically we've got the peat on the left hand side, which was saying about the peat grade 100% peat there with some lime and everything else. And then on the right hand side you've got it with the coir, the bark and the wood fibres, which, as you can tell, you can see here we've increased the rate slightly on the Osmocote to compensate for any drawdown and losses of growth in plants, and also by adding an Osmoform in there to help with the nitrogen drawdown of the crop. Raw materials. So again, peat, when you look at all the information here, you've got the fact that it's quite low in chloride, sodium, potassium, and the conductivity is very sort of low at 33 there. When we move over to coir, your chloride suddenly jumps up, potassium jumps up, sodium jumps up, and obviously conductivity, which does have lots of factors in what you're going to do and what you're going to use and grow with your crop. So by using these products, you've got to put them in perspective and use them to blend them correctly. And again, by comparing the materials, as we say here with the potassium and the chloride, you can see the huge differences that's available. We'll always give you the best advice in growing and what you can grow to perform, get the best performance from the media and for your crop. Fertilisers. Again, we're going to be using higher rates of fertiliser in peat-free and peat-reduced mixes because you don't have the buffering capacity. There's lower cation exchange, less able to hold essential nutrients. So it is a little bit like the leaky bucket you've seen here. But by increasing the fertiliser, using slow releases, you can use that products to get more efficiency out of that. And then again, we've got peat-free materials which generally have lower in pH, and then nutrients are not quite as available. But again, using a nitrogen-based product will help alleviate a lot of the problems, and then with that, we've still got a good crop. So this means that ground manufacturers need to add more fertiliser to peat-free and peat-reduced mixes, which is basically we're stopping that drawdown effect and keeping it as near as damn it, so that you can still get a continual growth moving from 100% peat crop to a peat reduced or peat free, which makes your life a lot easier. Added nitrogen. The added nitrogen drawdown to compensate for the wood-based products such as the wood fibre and barks and various things. By using an Osmo Coat N or an Osmoform, a slower release product, this will help you supplement it and be more friendly for the microorganisms. Whether it's an Osmo Coat N, which is obviously 5 to 6 months, or Osmoform, which is 8 to 10 weeks, it's far better to use something that's more slow release for your media, so you're getting a far more effect. Whereas if you use calcium nitrate, which is a cheaper alternative, what will happen with that is the more you water, the more you'll leach it out. So in actual fact, what will happen, as it says there, you know, the more you're putting on, the more you're washing out, and it's going down the drain, and you'll get more nitrogen deficiency. As you can see with the picture, you've got nitrogen deficiency here in the plant on the left, and then on the plant on the right, by using Osmo Coat N, has actually proved that it's grown away quite nicely. So the climate, things are warming up. So, you know, 2024 was the 4th warmest in record, behind all the other years. 8 months of the year were warmer than average. Spring was the warmest on record. Higher temperatures for May, and February the 2nd warmest in the record, as well as December the 5th. So, in contrast, the summer months were slightly cooler than average. But what does it all mean? The way to go through this is to change what you do. So in a nutshell, we've got the safest fertilisers around with the Osmo Coat range. So you may just have to increase the reach so you get great conductivity and plant growth and all the way through its time while you're watering and growing the plant. The raw materials are not inert, but they had EC. So by using this, you just got to watch the ingredients going into newly potted plants, getting the right mix for the right job that you want to do. Not one all mix fixes all. The nitrogen is needed for the wood-based products, and it's used to be vital to keep the longevity for the plant. Again, using the right product for what you're growing. For myself, it's not great putting an Osmo Coat 5 to 6 months in a bedding crop because you're not going to have it that long. So you use Osmoform N, which will give you the 8 to 10 week on a shorter term crop. So find the right product that does the job. But again, unseasonable heating up times, this will also help and also cause hindrance in the release pattern of the fertiliser. So always be aware that when it's getting warmer, the Osmo Coats that is in the mixes are releasing. Sometimes they're releasing a little bit too much for your crop, which obviously when you're watering you are flushing out, but then other times it's releasing just enough to keep that plant growing maximally all the time with the weather conditions you've got. Potting crops in the autumn. Some plants might be better potting them slightly later from conventional times with the peat, although it might cause problems with the nursery in the sense of you've never done that before, but it could be that you pot them a little bit later in the spring, so then when they do get off, they get off to a great start. So comparing Osmo Coat, by looking at this graphs here, it's showing that the exact is in the light green, which against the Osmo Coat 5. So planting later on in the year, it could be better, as we said before, about just changing the mixes to have like a summer and an autumn mix, so that you can use the Osmo Coat 5 in the autumn to have a slower release pattern at the start. Plants won't be growing too much in the weather we've got at the moment, unless they're indoors. But then, you know, as spring comes, it picks up and away it goes when it's into full growth. Same with the Osmo Coat Exact. You know, it's possibly a little bit high at the start, depending on what crops you're going, but then it dackers off a bit later on, where you could just need to change what you do. With the next slide as well, it also says about using Protect. So Protect, again, is in the darker green colour on that one. You have everything there, the Exact, the Osmo Coat 5 and the Protect. So it shows you what the release patterns can do for your time of area that you live in, as well as the times of the month of the year. So, storage. So it's a big problem in my mind. Many people will keep it in the back of the shed, it'll be fine, it's cool and everything else, but it's not right. You know, keeping that growing media to a good quality means you've got to look after it. Where possible, store it under cover, great, during the summer months, try and keep it cool. Use the media as quick as possible. I can't emphasise this enough, certainly on peat reduced and peat free. It doesn't last forever. And by using it quicker, you're getting the best out of what it is. So although it becomes possibly more costly in the fact that you need to buy a half a load rather than a full load, but buying it and you're using it in that time period earlier will get the best efficacy out of it. So it might cost a little bit more, but you get less losses and less headaches. So actually, it probably costs the same. Always cover part-use bags to stop contamination. And again, rotate stock. You always get the bags that's pushed to the back. Nobody actually knows what the hell they are. And with that in mind, nobody knows how long they've ever been there. So really the key is to get the media to be stored, to be used as quick as you can. And if you have got any problems, take a sample, get it sent off if you're always unsure. So don't panic. It's not all bad. The slide makes it look that way, but don't worry about that. Osmocote is still the very best product you can have. I've seen loads and loads of different trial work. You can't fault it for what it does. It's safe, it's effective, and it says what it does on the tin. Use an EC meter to check your conductivity regular throughout your growing crop in the winter. Sometimes the nutrition can creep up a little bit in the pot. It just might need a little bit of extra flushing. Don't pot sensitive crops too soon. Again, as I was saying, sometimes some people get some tricky plants in the autumn, plant it in the December when they've got spare time, but actually they're not growing. So are you not just better to plant them in the spring when they just get the best light and best heat that's coming in, and they grow away very quickly? Again, look at possibly having more than one mix. So this could be the point of, certainly with peat-free, is whether you have a summer and an autumn mix, you end up with crops that will be working better and holding a little bit more water in the summer and slightly more open in the winter, so that you can get that extra drainage and so the plant grows proficiently over the year. Use slow releasing and safer Osmocote products. Again, is it something we need to be looking at changing the mix slightly for the Osmocote 5 from the Exact, just to give you that slower release at the beginning, just so that the plant isn't getting too much nutrition or causing any damage at the start while it's rooting out? Again, these things are all worth talking about and looking at options. Avoid using uncontrolled fertilizers. So again, be careful of obviously coming into the spring when you're looking at plot plants that might need top dressing. Just look for the product that you need that will do the job efficiently and better. So thank you very much. Hope you've enjoyed it.